There's just no doubt that this is a political thing. This is designed to keep him away from power, in order to protect the interests of those people who are currently holding on to power in Pakistan. It's really grubby, really quite shocking. And for those of us who know, respect or love Imran, it's deeply distressing.
The former Pakistani Prime Minister and, of course, cricket legend Imran Khan has been in prison for over 3 years. Late on Friday night, he was due to be moved to Shifa International Hospital for independent treatment. But instead, he was taken to a government facility, declared fit and shipped back to prison. Well, his one-time brother-in-law, Lord Goldsmith, Zac Goldsmith, the former Tory Environment Minister, has written this weekend to the Foreign Secretary calling for all measures to be utilised to intervene and leverage our relationship with Pakistan to help Imran Khan's predicament. Lord Goldsmith joins us now. Hello to you.
Hi there. Thanks for having me on.
First of all, tell us about the ordeal, really, and the treatment that Imran Khan is undergoing.
I mean, one of the problems is that he's been completely isolated from his family, including my two nephews, his sons, Suleiman and Qasim, who've been doing an incredible campaign on his behalf. He's been isolated from his doctors. His medical records have not been made available, other than heavily redacted and very sporadically. And I think it's worth remembering that this is Pakistan's highest court. The Supreme Court made this ruling very, very clear. They wanted an independent evaluation of his medical plight. They wanted complete records of his assessments made public, and are very clear that his treatment is not appropriate. It doesn't meet even the most basic standards. And that order from the Supreme Court only came after the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture, Dr. Alice Edwards, has spoken out 3 times in the last year about Imran's treatment. So, there's been a big build-up, and there's no doubt at all that the government of Pakistan is doing everything it can, both to conceal the condition in which Imran is living at the moment, if you can call it that, concealing the sort of medical reality that he's facing mentally and physically. And in my view, they're doing everything they can just to keep him away from the public in Pakistan who revere Imran until such a time as he's no longer a threat. And in my mind, hard not to be bleak about it, I think they want him gone forever. And it's extraordinary that the allies of Pakistan, other Commonwealth countries, aren't making as much of a fuss about this as they should, because he's a former democratically elected prime minister of a Commonwealth country, a man with very long track record of history here in the United Kingdom, not least his 2 boys are British, but he played for 2 county teams. He's a great sort of legend of the game, and wildly popular in Pakistan. There's just no doubt that this is a political thing. This is designed to keep him away from power, in order to protect the interests of those people who are currently holding on to power in Pakistan. It's really grubby, really quite shocking. And for those of us who know, respect or love Imran, it's deeply distressing.
We know that Pakistani political leaders of different parties have been imprisoned by other parties. There have been assassinations and even an execution on one occasion. Is there any basis, really, for him being in prison?
Well, look, I'm not a lawyer and I'm not close to the issues, but it seems to me that the case against him is absurd. I mean, he's been accused of so many things, 100 charges at one point, and most of them, almost all of them, have had to be dropped because they are absurd. He was or faced jail for unlawful marriage, which turned out to be nonsense. He faced jail for keeping a watch that someone had given him when he was prime minister. He's been charged with handing over state secrets, also overturned, inciting his supporters to violence against the current government. I mean, it's like a tsunami of charges, and there's no doubt they're political. And I just would say, I come from a world of politics. I was an MP for 10 years. I'm in the House of Lords now. I was a Foreign Office minister, making friends with, challenging sometimes ministers all over the world. And I have never known a politician who is as uncorruptible, uninterested in material gain as Imran Khan. I just think he is simply unbribable. It would be impossible to excite him into doing something against the interest of his country or against his own principles with a piece of physical wealth. It's just, he's the last person on earth, I think, who could be corrupted in any way at all. And I know, Pakistan does have a history of corruption. There's a lot of, but it's often been said that if you get power in Pakistan, it's like having a license to loot. And one of the reasons I think Pakistan is not shining as brightly as it should, given the ingenuity, energy, dynamism of its people, is because of corruption. But that's why Imran was so important for Pakistan, because he is an anti-corruption politician. He is uncorruptible. And I think most people, honestly, most people know that that's true, which is why I think these charges are just so absurd.
I know that his sister, Umza, has had very limited access to him. I mean, is it your belief that effectively he's being treated such a way that, it'll kill him?
Yes, I do. I think without intervention, without a change of track by government, I think Imran, he's a kind of lion to those of us who know him. It's almost impossible to imagine him having, suffering from extreme anxiety, which is what his sister has said he's suffering from, or, he's losing, if not possibly lost the sight in one of his eyes. We don't know. He's physically in really bad shape. It's very hard to reconcile that with the Imran that I know, but the conditions are such that is the direction in which he's going. And she was very, very shocked. I'm sure some of your listeners would have seen her testimony, particularly around the impact his sort of forced isolation is having on his mental health. But he's been denied access to his family, including my two nephews. It was the first time she had seen her brother for 10 months. There's a lot of speculation because people just don't know. The government is doing everything it can to separate Imran from his family, from his doctors, from his legal representatives, and of course from the people of Pakistan who, on the whole, as I said, revere him. If there was an election tomorrow and he was allowed to stand, I don't think anyone doubts that he would absolutely thump it. He'd win with a gigantic landslide, and that is fundamentally the reason why he's locked up, and that is why I think they're trying to wear him down to the extent that he no longer poses a threat. And I've thought that since the day he was arrested. I just couldn't see how, without pressure, the government would ever allow him to be free or even to live ultimately, because for as long as he's around, he is the single biggest threat to their kind of grubby grasp on power.
What more could Ed Miliband, the Foreign Secretary, who you've written to this weekend, what more could he do, bearing in mind that, as I understand it, we have reasonably good diplomatic relations with Pakistan?
Yeah, and we've got a long history with Pakistan. There's a huge Pakistani diaspora here in the UK. Our relationship goes back generations. And I think the problem is that the UK government has been much too passive until now, monitoring the situation. Every parliamentary question is responded to with, we're keeping an eye on things, basically, but not doing anything. Ed Miliband is new to the post, so I'm certainly not pointing the finger or blaming him. But I think the Foreign Office needs to be much more robust. They need to summon the Pakistani High Commissioner in London and have very, very clear set of demands laid out, demands that we're legitimately able, I think, to put to them, given our relationship. We need our own High Commissioner in Islamabad to hold high-level representations and convey that message to the Pakistani government as directly as possible. We should be coordinating with the US, with the EU, but also, most importantly, I think, with other Commonwealth governments. I wrote last night a similar letter to the newish Secretary General of the Commonwealth, just saying that what Pakistan is doing goes against everything that the Commonwealth is supposed to stand for. The Commonwealth means nothing. The Charter means nothing if the Commonwealth itself isn't willing to intervene in a situation of this sort. There are plenty of levers that we have, and we should be using them.
Briefly on domestic matters, you ran as a Conservative candidate for London Mayor. Do you welcome Andy Burnham's shift to give more power to mayors?
Yeah, I think, look, I believe in localization. I believe in devolution where it's meaningful. So broadly, yes, I think the more power can be handed back proportionately to the regions, to the locality, the better. It requires, and I think also that one of the problems in politics is that people never take responsibility for things that are bad, often take undue credit for things that are good. The more devolution, decentralization happens, the harder it is for politicians to buck the blame, and that additional responsibility, that additional power, comes with additional responsibility, and that's a good thing for democracy, I think.
And as a Tory peer, are you worried about losing the whip over attitudes to net zero?
No, I'm not. Look, my views have never changed. I think I think there's I've got to be careful what I say here, but I think advocates of net zero, of which I'm very much one and have always been, I think have sometimes been a bit tin-eared in the whole climate discussion. I think climate politics has become a bit too rigid, but particularly in relation to the measures necessary to reduce our emissions and wean ourselves off dependence on fossil fuels. There are many different ways of doing that, and I don't think anyone should be dogmatic about the right approach. I think what's lost in that sometimes is the goal is something which I would like everyone to sign up to, but the means for achieving that goal is absolutely open to debate. And I also worry that climate politics has become the entirety of environmental politics. And most often when I'm invited on by broadcasters to talk about the environment, I'm not really being asked to talk about the environment at all. I'm being asked to talk about carbon measures, carbon policies, carbon politics. But without forests, without ecosystems, it doesn't matter how many solar panels we cover our roofs with, how many wind turbines we put up, we're absolutely stuffed. The bit that's always left out of the discussion is the environment. And I think this government actually has taken us backwards, not forwards, despite its commitment to net zero. I mean, I used to run something called the Climate and Environment Unit in the Foreign Office, which governed how our money was spent overseas. They've just changed the name to Climate and Energy. The environment's just gone. And it just seems to me a massive error. Most people, I think, understand that, we want the Congo to survive. We need the Amazon, not just for people in and around the Amazon, but for all of us. Ultimate governor of weather, climate in that region and beyond. Half of the rainfall of Africa comes from the Congo Basin. If you cut the Congo Basin down, you don't need to be an expert to understand what the implications might look like. I think everyone cares about nature. Everyone cares about biodiversity. Everyone understands, perhaps not in detail, but they understand the importance of healthy ecosystems. And yet those things have been completely deleted from the discussion. So I'm also critical of some of the politics around climate change. And I would love to see the Conservative Party develop a more holistic, a fuller approach to tackling the environment, not just focusing on what they don't like about the net zero politics.
Lord Goldsmith, Zac Goldsmith, thank you very much indeed for joining us.